Discover 12 fascinating details about Cleopatra, Queen of the Nile. Cleopatra VII, often referred to simply as Cleopatra, was indeed the last pharaoh of Egypt and remains one of the most iconic figures in ancient history. She was born in 69 BC and was a member of the Ptolemaic dynasty, a Greek ruling family that had controlled Egypt for centuries. Cleopatra's parents were Ptolemy XII Auletes, her father, and an unknown mother. She was born in Alexandria, Egypt, which was the cultural and political center of the Ptolemaic kingdom. Cleopatra was the third of 6 children, and her siblings included 2 older sisters, Berenice IV and Cleopatra VI, and 3 younger siblings, Arsinoe IV, Ptolemy XIII, and Ptolemy XIV. Not an Egyptian, Cleopatra. Although Cleopatra was born in Egypt, she was descended from Ptolemy Soter, an Alexander the Great general, and Macedonian Greece. After Alexander's demise in 323 B.C., Ptolemy took control of Egypt and began a nearly 3-century-long dynasty of Greek-speaking kings. Despite not being of Egyptian descent, Cleopatra adopted many of that nation's historical traditions and was the first Ptolemaic ancestor to master the language. She had a high level of intelligence and education. Cleopatra is lauded in medieval Arab sources for her achievements as a mathematician, chemist, and philosopher. According to the historian al-Masudi, she is also reported to have published scholarly works and was a multilingual speaker of between 5 and 9 languages, including her native Greek, Egyptian, Arabic, and Hebrew. She was an offspring of incest. In order to maintain the chastity of their bloodline, Ptolemaic dynasty members frequently wed other family members. It's likely that Cleopatra's parents were brothers and sisters because more than a dozen of her forebears were married to cousins or siblings. Following this tradition, Cleopatra eventually wed both of her young brothers, who each functioned as her ceremonial partner and co-regent at various points throughout her rule. Cleopatra's greatest advantage was not just her beauty. Although Cleopatra was portrayed in Roman propaganda as a promiscuous temptress who used her sexual allure as a political tool, she may have been more well known for her intelligence than her attractiveness. She was educated in mathematics, philosophy, oratory, and astronomy and could speak up to a dozen languages. Later Egyptian sources characterized her as a monarch who elevated the ranks of scholars and enjoyed their company. There is also proof that Cleopatra wasn't as attractive physically as was once thought. Although some historians assert that she purposefully portrayed herself as masculine as a demonstration of power, coins featuring her likeness show her with manly features and a wide, hooked nose. Three of her siblings died as a result of her involvement. The Ptolemaic practice of family marriage included power grabs and assassination schemes, and Cleopatra and her siblings were no exception. After she attempted to assume sole control of the throne, her first sibling husband, Ptolemy XIII, expelled her from Egypt. The two eventually engaged in a civil war. By collaborating with Julius Caesar, Cleopatra recovered the upper hand, and Ptolemy drowned on the Nile River after losing the battle. After the war, Cleopatra remarried to her younger brother Ptolemy XIV, although it's thought that she killed him in an effort to co-rule with her son. She also planned Arsinoe's execution in 41 BC because she saw her sister as a potential heir to the throne. Cleopatra had a knack for entrances. Cleopatra frequently employed deft stagecraft to win over potential supporters and cement her celestial reputation because she thought of herself as a living goddess. She had a reputation for being dramatic, as evidenced by the arrival of Julius Caesar in Alexandria in 48 BC. During her conflict with her brother Ptolemy XIII, Cleopatra had herself covered in a carpet. Some historians claim it was a linen sack and smuggled into the Roman general's private quarters because she knew Ptolemy's forces would obstruct her attempts to meet with him. The young queen in her royal attire fascinated Caesar, and the two quickly grew to be allies and lovers. Later, when Cleopatra and Mark Antony met, she used a similar theatrical device. She is claimed to have traveled in a golden barge with purple sails and silver oars when summoned to Tarsus to see the Roman triumvir. Cleopatra was transformed into the goddess Aphrodite, and she sat beneath a gilded canopy with Cupid-themed servants fanning her and lighting fragrant incense. Antony was immediately mesmerized because he saw himself as the personification of the Greek god Dionysus. She was a resident of Rome at the time of Caesar's murder. Beginning in 46 BC, Cleopatra moved to Rome to live with Julius Caesar, and her arrival seems to have created quite a commotion. She even traveled to the city with their love child, Caesarion, in tow. Caesar didn't conceal the fact that she was his mistress, and many Romans were outraged when he erected a gilded statue of her in the temple of Venus Genetrix. After Caesar was fatally murdered in the Roman Senate in 44 BC, Cleopatra was compelled to leave Rome, but not before leaving her mark on the city. According to the historian Joanne Fletcher, so many Roman women adopted the Cleopatra look that their statuary has often been mistaken for Cleopatra herself. Her unusual haircut and pearl jewelry went into high popularity. Mark Antony and Cleopatra established their own drinking establishment. In 41 BC, Cleopatra started her fabled romance with Roman general Mark Antony. They had a political component to their relationship. Antony required access to Egypt's wealth and resources, while Cleopatra needed Antony to safeguard her throne and preserve Egypt's independence. But they were also renowned for enjoying each other's company. They allegedly spent the winter of 41 to 40 BC in Egypt living a life of luxury and excess, and even started their own drinking club called the Inimitable Livers. In addition to nightly feasts and alcohol binges, the group's members also periodically participated in elaborate competitions and games. According to legend, Antony and Cleopatra enjoyed playing practical jokes on Alexandrians while disguising themselves and exploring the city's streets. In a naval conflict, she commanded a fleet. Eventually, Cleopatra wed Mark Antony, with whom she had 3 children, but their connection also caused a huge controversy in Rome. In order to depict Antony's adversary Octavian as a traitor controlled by a cunning seductress, the latter deployed propaganda. As a result, the Roman Senate waged war on Cleopatra in 32 BC. The following year, a legendary naval battle at Actium marked the conflict's culmination. Several hundred Egyptian warships were personally escorted into the battle by Cleopatra alongside Antony's fleet, but they were no match for Octavian's navy. Cleopatra and Antony were forced to cut through the Roman line and retreat to Egypt after the fight quickly turned into a rout. An asp bite may not have killed Cleopatra. Following Octavian's army's pursuit of them to Alexandria in 30 BC, Cleopatra and Antony are known for killing themselves. While Antony is thought to have killed himself by stabbing himself in the stomach, the exact method used by Cleopatra is unknown. However, the ancient chronicler Plutarch acknowledges that what really took place is known to no one. The legend claims that she perished by luring a asp, likely a viper or Egyptian cobra, to bite her arm. According to him, Cleopatra was also rumored to have hidden a lethal poison in one of her hair combs. Strabo, a historian, speculates that she may have applied a lethal ointment. Given this, many academics now believe she used a pin that had been soaked in a strong toxin, maybe snake venom. In conclusion, Cleopatra's legacy continues to captivate us with her intriguing life and remarkable achievements. From her mastery of languages to her strategic brilliance, and her legendary romances, Cleopatra remains a timeless figure in history. Exploring these 12 fascinating details about the Queen of the Nile has allowed us to glimpse into the extraordinary life of a woman who left an indelible mark on the world. Her story serves as a testament to the enduring power of intelligence, charisma, and determination.